Okay, next, I would like to invite Dr. Rajiv Taraskar, Director, IIIT Kottayam, for the welcome address. Sir, please, sir.
Yeah. I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. The
Good
Yes,
morning.
sir.
IIIT
Good morning, sir.
Kottayam,
Good morning, sir.
yeah, the IIIT Kottayam is organizing a series of webinars and invited well-known personalities from industry and academia across the globe. We have organized more than 20 such webinars. It is a step toward establishing world-class university in India. It's a research university in India. Today, on behalf of IIIT Kottayam, I'm happy to introduce very renowned academician of India for this webinar, Honorable Professor Sabu Thomas, Vice Chancellor Mahatma Gandhi University, Kerala. I'm sure no introduction is required for such a well-known and globally renowned professor of polymer technology. We are highly thankful to Professor Sabu Thomas for accepting our invitation and delivering a webinar on how to formulate a high-impact publication. Very few researchers in India are having H-index more than 100, and Professor Sabu Thomas is one of them. He is listed in the most cited researchers in material science and engineering by Elsewhere Scopus Data 2016. Thus, he is the most appropriate academician who can give justice to this topic. I'm sure everybody must be eagerly waiting for this valuable webinar for Indian research community. We are grateful for this presence. We are grateful for his presence among us today. Without further delay, please join me in welcoming Professor Sabu Thomas for today's webinar. Thank you, and over to Dr. Panchami.
Yes, sir. On behalf of IIIT Kottayam, we are honored to invite Professor Dr. Sabu Thomas to deliver the speech. Please, sir.
Very good morning to all of you. I'm excited to be with you today, and thanks to the director of the institute for introducing me, and many thanks to the directors of Kottayam, Institute of Kottayam, for interacting with me and asking me to give a presentation. I am delighted to know from your director that you have organized a series of webinars and workshops. Fantastic, congratulations. And Mahatma Gandhi University is very happy to collaborate with you in terms of research, in terms of extension. So let us work together as a team. The title of the presentation, if you look at the title of my presentation, maybe Anish, you can load that. How to prepare a high impact publication. You know, worldwide, research is always analyzed based on the impact of your publication. Now, journals are trying to get high impact factor. If you look at Nature and Science, you know, they are the toppers. They have impact factor more than 30. And every journal is trying to build up good reputation, good quality. When you apply for an academic position, they always look at your high impact publications. If you have a paper in Nature or Science, you know, there's a very good value. Therefore, my request to all the researchers who are attending this conference, always try to publish in high impact journals. You know, I have supervised now more than 110 people, PhD. I have students across the globe. I always tell my co-workers, always try to publish in high impact journals. You know, we have beautiful high impact journals published by Nature, published by American Chemical Society, published by Royal Society of Chemistry. They're beautiful journals. And I also request all my colleagues, please do not publish in predatory journals. I have a humble request to all of you. I was invited to give a lecture by the Third Academy of Sciences in Kathmandu about predatory journals. When I looked at the literature, the position of India in publishing in predatory journal is number 2. Number 1 is United States, predatory journal. Number 2 is India. Number 3 is China. So my humble request to all the researchers is do not publish in predatory journals. Their interest is only money. Always try to publish in high impact journals. So today I'm going to give you some insight how to formulate a high impact publication. I'm going to show you my first slide. When you formulate a high impact publication, one of the first points you must ask is, are we working in frontier areas of science and technology? Frontier areas. That's very important. Some areas may not be that good to publish a paper in high impact journal. If you look at high impact publications, if you look at science and nature, you will find lots of papers in biological sciences, frontier areas of biological sciences. If you look at coronavirus, there are fantastic papers from Wuhan laboratory in China. They have published a series of papers in Nature on coronavirus before the pandemic. The virology laboratory in Wuhan. So Wuhan lab is quite famous worldwide. If you look at Max Planck Institute in Germany, with whom I'm interacting, if you look at the publication Max Planck Institute, they always publish high-ranking journals. Therefore, and they also work in frontier areas of technology. So one of the first point is you have to work in frontier areas of science and technology. So I request all my colleagues, please mute, otherwise you cannot hear me well. I request all my colleagues to mute, otherwise a lot of sound will come. The second point is very good research problem. You know, I take a lot of time to identify very good research problem. If you look at my own research, as the director introduced me, I work on polymer science and engineering, polymer science and technology. I also work in frontier areas of nanoscience and nanotechnology. So I always look at a very good research problem. That's extremely important. The third point is, a student started research, or a professor wanted to do some sort of new work in a certain area, he or she has to do excellent literature survey. We should be able to understand what has been done so far, what is the state of the art. So I always ask my PhD students to spend at least 6 months to read the whole literature. A student working on green synthesis of nanoparticles should read all the literature related to that. And he has to make a real good base. So literature survey is extremely important. The next point is you must identify the gap areas. What are the gap areas? What are the new contributions to be made? That's very, very important. Identify the gap area. So when I get a new student for PhD, you know what I do? I always send the student to the library for about 6 months. Then after that, I ask the student to make a good presentation and come out with new ideas. The student has to really understand what are the gaps. That's very, very important. Then after that, we have to really make a plan for systematic experimentation. Very systematically, we have to plan the experiment, systematic experimentation. Modern techniques. That's very important. If you look at my own work, you see in the beginning of 2000s, I used to do all my transmission electron microscopy work in China. I have a long cooperation with China. I used to do a lot of synchrotron measurements in Europe because we were not having that facility here. If you look at my work on surface analysis, we do a lot of work in Slovenia. So multiple modern techniques are very important nowadays to publish a high quality paper. In India also, I collaborate with several institutes. I go to IIC Bangalore for NMR work because we don't have a source NMR in my campus. We have only a liquid NMR. So we have to really look at modern techniques for instrumentation. Then comes, when you formulate a paper, the abstract of the paper. The abstract of the paper should be very concise. And abstract should bring novel findings, novel ideas. You know, some of the reviewers, you know, what do? They just read the abstract. And if the abstract cannot give good insight, immediately they reject the paper. So whenever you prepare a paper, the abstract should contain the novel findings. The abstract is actually very brief, half a paragraph, but this abstract should have the key findings of the paper. Then comes introduction. Don't write big introduction. Introduction should be something like 1.5 pages. And the number of references could be 25 to 30. So don't write very big introduction because all the journals have the problem of page limitation. So introduction could be something like 1.5 to 2 pages maximum. Then you have results. Then you have discussion. You should really make excellent discussion. Results should be systematically presented, followed by excellent discussion. I can tell you a personal experience. In 1989 to 91, I was in Canada for a postdoc after joining MGU. It was very difficult to please my boss in Canada. See, I write results, discussion. My boss always tells Sabu, you have to discuss and discuss with the nice cartoons. You have to bring new ideas. So discussion has to be extremely strong. Otherwise, you cannot publish a very good impact. Professor Prof was my advisor, a French man, I mean, a French part of Canada in Quebec. He said, Professor Thomas, you have to dream. You have to bring in new ideas. So you have to have new cartoons. So results should be extremely nice. You have to interpret the results properly. Very good artwork. The graphic should be extremely nice. The message should be conveyed very well to the readers. That's what I mean. Very good artwork. I can give an example. I had a collaborator. He's no more now. Professor Karger Cox is in University of Kaiserslautern, Germany. My students used to go and work with him. And my students said it's very difficult to please him with respect to artwork. Professor Karger Cox always demand excellent artwork in the paper. So artwork is very, very important. Good pictures. And the cartoon or picture that you draw in the paper should convey the message. In order to publish a good paper, you always compare your results with theoretical modeling. Now theory, modeling, and simulation became very, very important. So you have to do some mathematical analysis. If you look at any of our publication from my group, we do a lot of experiments, but we always compare our experiments with theoretical predictions. There are a lot of models proposed by a large number of theoreticians. So it's always nice to compare your data with theoretical predictions. And when you write the conclusion, don't simply write a few conclusions. You have to discuss and conclude. Again, I learned from Professor Kottayam in Canada. He said, When you write a conclusion, Dr. Thomas, you always tell me, Dr. Thomas, you have to discuss and conclude. And at the end, you have references. References, when you cite recent references. Suppose you are publishing a paper in 2020. If you don't have any references of last 5 years, the paper could be likely to be rejected, because that indicates that you have not read the recent literature. And the last point I want to tell you is very good English. No grammatical mistakes, spelling mistakes. If you make lots of mistakes in English, the paper could be rejected. So these are some of the key points when you write, when you prepare a high impact application. Now I'm going to discuss one by one how to write a high impact paper, getting ready with data. Once you have all this information, you see, you should work in 14 areas. You should do systematic experimentation. You need sophisticated instrumental facilities. Once you have all this data in your hands, what you have to do is you write the first draft of the paper. Make the first draft of the paper. And you also have to have structure of a scientific paper. As I mentioned earlier, abstract, introduction, experimental. Okay, you have to have very beautiful alignment, structure of the paper. You also have to select a good journal. Suppose we want to publish in Nature. You must read some of the Nature publications and see how they have really organized the paper. If you are publishing to American ACS Journal of American Chemical Society, one of the high-ranking journals of ACS, you see how JAX has organized, how JAX papers. If you want to publish in Science, you have to read some of the science papers. So accordingly, you have to select the best journal. Certain journals may not like your work. So you have to select the best journal for your work. Then submission, you have to submit. Now all the journal submission is online. And when you submit a paper for publication, this could be, there are several possibilities. It could be rejected. It could be accepted with a major modification. It could be accepted with minor modification. Some people say rejected but revise and resubmit. That's also a possibility. And it could be accepted in the present form as it is. So these are the various possibilities. Then you will, after your paper is accepted, you get galley proof, and the galley proof has to be corrected very well. Some researchers they don't care about galley proof, but galley proof you should read very well and make all. This is the last time you can introduce corrections in your paper. So these are the important points to be remembered. Next slide. Getting ready with the data. Suppose a PhD student is coming to me with a lot of data. I would always say, you organize your data in a systematic way. You make your own analysis. You make plots and tables. That is the first thing you have to do. Analyze your data very systematically. You make plots, tables, graphs, everything you plot. Then you have to organize all these informations, all these new findings in a systematic and logical way. That's very important. Systematic and logical sequencing. The next important point is you have to consolidate the data points and create figures of manuscripts. You see, if you look at the Nature or Science, they don't accept large number of figures. They might accept maybe 6 figures or 4 figures because they have page limitation. JAX may take maybe 7 or 8 figures. And if you have still a data, you can give it as a supporting information. All journals probably include supporting information. So referees can really look at the supporting information. And you have to discuss your data with your advisor, your PhD advisor or your professor, and note down all the important points. And you must also know what is the focus of your paper. Suppose you are working on water purification, and you know what is the new findings of your paper. That is not the focus on your paper. Let me talk to your first draft. You see, first draft, second draft, third draft. You know, some of my students, you know, I correct several times, 5, 6 times. So first draft, identify 2 or 3 important findings emerging from the experiment. That's very important. So you have to really focus some of the very, very important points. That should be the central theme of the article. The second point is good and bad writing styles in the literature. Some are simple and easy to follow, some are just too complex. That's a very important point to be remembered. Significant figures, I made a point here. This is a very important mistake. Many people, write in their paper. Number of significant digits. That's very important. Some people say 10 point not true, 10 point not 1. So these are all very important points. So you have to really look at what is the error involved in analysis. So number of significant digits are very important. Number of figures are very important. Number of schemes and cartoons are very important. Number of tables are very important. So don't put so many pictures, so many tables, so many cartoons. So you have to minimize it because all the journals have a space limitation. Now I'm going to show you the structure of a scientific paper. As I already mentioned, number 1 is title. Title should be very interesting, very catchy, short, abstract. You have to really put novel ideas. Then table of content graphics. There should be a very nice graphic that will actually tell you the new finding of the paper. Very beautiful cartoon. Table of content, TOC graphic. Then comes introduction, experimental, results, discussion, conclusion. And you have to acknowledge, that's a very important point. You have to acknowledge the funding agencies, your university, your staff, those who really supported you have to acknowledge. That's very, very important. I remember when we have funded DST projects, very important that DST has to be acknowledged. When I get a project from European Union has to be acknowledged. References, key references has to be cited. Suppose if you miss a very important reference, that is likely to be badly affect your paper. Suppose the referee is noting that, oh, this gentleman did not cite this very important paper, then there could be a possibility of rejection. And you also give supporting information because you cannot put everything in the paper. There's always page limitation. Then we go one by one. If you look at title, the title is very, very important. Title should be very simple, attractive, and it should accurately reflect the investigation. That is my first point. And please try to avoid in the title investigation, study, novel, facile. Please avoid such terms. And avoid acronyms. You know, acronyms means, I can tell you what you mean by acronyms. Acronym PVC. In polymer science, PVC means polyvinyl chloride. Don't use such acronyms in the title. You expand all the acronyms, because if you use acronyms, people may not understand. So we have a good example here. Look at this. I have given a title, How Graphene is Cut Upon Oxidation. How is graphene cut upon oxidation? You see the difference in title. The first title is wrong. How graphene is cut upon oxidation. The second one is good. How is graphene cut up on oxidation? You see, so people make such mistakes in the title itself. So title should be precise, should not be too long. Avoid acronyms, very precise titles. Then comes abstract. As I told you earlier, abstract is extremely important. Some referees may not have much of time. You know what they do? They just read the abstract, and the abstract is not very appealing, immediately reject the paper. So abstract has to be written very, very carefully. So I mentioned a few sentences. The first couple of sentences should focus on what the study is about. You have to include the major findings in a style that a general readership can read and understand. Abstract should be simple, creative, informative. These are the points I want to tell you about the abstract. Next one. Look at the graphic. Next one. Next one. Yes, the table of content graphic. That's very important. You see, if you look at all the new journals, the abstract will have a beautiful graphical representation. That should be exciting. And this graph, this sort of cartoon should convey the total theme of the paper. By looking at this cartoon, one should be able to understand what is the new contribution, what is the main theme of the paper. That's very, very important. Then comes structure of the scientific paper again. Introduction, don't write too much introduction. I would say 1.5 pages or maximum 2 pages. That's the best. In the introduction, you must systematically develop the subject. A very nice background review. You have to cite the major important findings already reported in literature. Then at the end of the introduction, you have to bring in the new contribution. You have to bring in the gap. So this is the way an introduction has to be written. The introduction should never miss the key papers already published in the area. Coming to experimental, I would say when you write an experimental, you have to divide experimental into materials. What are the materials being used for your study? What are the methods? What are the characterization techniques? What are the measurements you have done? The analytical tools, etc., etc. So all these things have to be added in the experimental section. Coming to results and discussion. See, I remember my boss in Canada, when I did a postdoc, he always wants results and discussion separate. I think that is the best methodology. You write the results very briefly, then you discuss the results in a separate section. So results and discussion should be extremely good. I made a sentence here: avoid excessive presentation, avoid redundancy. Many journals, my own students, they write a lot of things, unnecessary things, then the referee say, oh, this is a very redundant paper. Okay, so you just present the key findings, then you can discuss. Coming to the conclusion. In the conclusion, see, many research papers, if you read, I get lots of papers for review. And I look at in the beginning, I look at the abstract and conclusion. Many conclusions are exact duplication of the abstract. Even my own students, they do that. They just a little bit of variation and they make no. Conclusion should be something different. Conclusion should include the major findings, followed by a brief discussion. That is why my advisor in Canada always tell, Dr. Thomas, discuss and conclude. You have to have some sort of discussion. I made it a point, do not write the abstract in the conclusion part. If you look at the acknowledgement, please acknowledge whoever actually helped you, colleagues, scientists, technicians, funding agencies. If you forget that, sometimes you will end up in trouble. I had such problems. A student of mine, we had a big DST funded project. A student of mine somehow forgot, including me, forgot to write the last sentence to acknowledging the funding agency. So that's very, very important. You have to acknowledge all the people who have supported you. References, you have to follow the style of the journal. If it is ACS, you have to follow the ACS style. If it is Royal Society of Chemistry, you have to follow RSC style. If it is Nature, you have to follow the Nature publication style. So you have to really follow the style of the journal. Supporting information. As I told you earlier, all journals have page limitations. So you have to give a lot of information as supporting data. Methods, analysis, blank experiments, additional data, etc., etc. I also request all my colleagues participants who are listening to my talk, please avoid plagiarism. That's a very big problem now. You see, I am the editor of Nanostructures and Nano Objects, or Elsevier. The site score is now 5.6, so I want to build up a very high impact. So whenever I get an article, every day I get a few articles for review to my journal from worldwide. I always run this paper into a plagiarism software. You may be surprised, 90% of the papers I receive are above 50% of plagiarism. So immediately I reject. Or I say you reduce the plagiarism and send back. So I have mentioned what is plagiarism: practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own. That is what is plagiarism. It's a sort of stealing. This is synonymous to copying, infringement of copyright, theft, stealing. So please don't copy anything. Several scientists have problem of plagiarism, and mostly the students do that. The students just copy a paragraph from another journal. But you will be caught now very easily because we have beautiful softwares to detect that. So you read something, understand something, and write in your own language. But you can quote somebody's finding. According to Professor Thomas, you can quote. According to Professor Rao, you can quote that. But some people, what they do is they just copy. Please avoid this. Selecting a journal, that's a very important point. Each journal specializes in a specific area of research. Nature focuses basically on new findings, extremely new findings, nature and science. American Journal of Chemistry, American Journal of Chemistry, if you look at, they also look at new findings in chemistry. So every journal has their own key points. So you have to really understand which journal I should select. That's a very important point. So before, writing a paper, you must really see whether this journal is suitable for my work. How do you do that? You read the articles already published in the journal. You also read, if you look at the website of the journal, they will say these are the aims, these are the objectives of the journal. So that has to be understood well. Very, very important point. I have a slide. How do you look at the impact factor of a journal? See, impact factor of a journal in 2008 is calculated based on number of 2006, 2007 citations in 2008 divided by number of papers published in 2006 and 2007. So this is the way impact factor is calculated. If it is 2020, you know what people do? Number of papers in 2018 and 19 citations. They look at number of citations in 2018 and 19, which appeared in 2020, divided by number of papers published in 2018 and 19. So all of you should know what is an impact factor. Every journal has an impact factor. Now, in order to get impact factor of a journal, we have to really wait some time. You know, I am running a journal of Elsevier and the editor. We haven't still got the impact factor. We have been working for the last 4 years. We applied for the impact factor. Now we have only site score. So impact factor, it takes time. You have to make application for the impact factor. They look at your citations. They look at the number of publications you produce, and based on that, they calculate. Next one, please. Yes. Before. I wanted to show you the impact factor of some of the journals. You see, Angwande Chemi, a very leading journal of chemistry. Angwande Chemi is nothing but applied chemistry. Impact factor is 10, nanoletters, advanced materials, GAGs, PRL. So I mentioned impact factor of some of the journals. So you can get all the impact factor if you search in Google. Google gives you information about the impact factor of all the journals. My own area, I can show you the impact factor on Progress in Polymer Science, a very good review journal. Impact factor is around 26. Polymer reviews in impact factor is 7. Macromolecules in impact factor is 5 from ACS. Biomacromolecules impact factor is 5.3. Polymer chemistry impact factor is 5.2. See, these are some of the impact factors. Then after the paper is ready, how do you submit? I have a few points to discuss with you. Read the finalized paper very carefully. That's very important. Check for accuracy of the figures and captions. Are the figures correctly referred in the text? You see, I get lots of papers to review. On many occasions, the authors fail to discuss the tables and figures correctly. Sometimes they forget about some figures. So you have to see that all the figures and tables have been systematically discussed. You see, I have a group size of around 20-25 people doing PhD with me. And when I get a paper, it is in the final form, I will ask some of my students who work in the same area, please read this paper. If I am sending to Nature or Science or such journal, I always send this paper to some of my good friends in Europe or US to read and comment. So it's always nice to get feedback from colleagues and friends. Make sure the paper is read by at least 1 or 2 colleagues who is not familiar with the specific work. That's also very important. Those who are familiar with your work sometimes miss some mistakes. Those who are not familiar with the work, they will find some mistakes very easily. And when you submit a paper, you have to make a very beautiful covering letter to the editor that this paper is something novel, this paper is opening up a new area. So you have to really write a good covering letter. Covering letter is very important because the editor reads, oh, the covering letter first. And he says, oh, this is a good contribution. Otherwise, you know, some of the high-ranking journals, editors immediately refuse. If you don't write a very nice letter about your new findings, it could be rejected. Have all co-authors approve the finalized version of the paper. That's very important. If you look at my own publication, I have co-authors from different parts of the world. So I get all their agreement, the paper is sent to them, get the comments, introduce the comments, then only I will submit. So you have to really get the approval of all the co-authors. Since I am the editor of a journal, you see, once I receive an article for publication, there could be 5 or 6 people, co-authors. I will write to them. Do you agree with this publication? You know, incidentally, I also got some disapproval. Some co-authors said, no, we have not seen the paper. Immediately, I will reject the paper. So you have to really see that all the co-authors agree, all the co-authors have read this paper. As I told you earlier, when you submit a paper for publication, you also can cite some good referees. They will ask, okay, mention a few referees' names. I used to give 4 or 5 names. And the journal also takes their own review panel and they send out for review process. Some journals are fast, some journals it will take 6 months, some journals it will take probably a year. But nowadays everything is online, things are much faster. Usually we get the comments from the experts. As I told you earlier, it could be acceptance in the present form. It could be acceptance with minor revision. It could be acceptance with major revision. It could be a rejection with resubmission, or it could be a complete rejection. There are 5 possibilities. So once you receive these comments, you have to really read the comments, understand the comments well. Never blame the reviewer. Okay? So you have to be polite, respectful, and then you have to really, suppose if it is a major revision or minor revision, you have to really make all the corrections. If you have indifference, if you do not agree with the review comments, you say, I do not agree. These are the following grounds. So every point has to be discussed. So you have to really answer to all the questions. You see, I get lots of papers after major revision because I'm a reviewer to many journals. You know, some of the authors, they don't really answer all the questions correctly. Therefore, I send them again. This answer is not correctly, this question is not correctly answered. So I request all my friends that you have to address all the questions correctly. And this has to be read several times by your students, by your colleagues and friends, and then resubmit. That's very, very important. Once your paper is accepted, then you get the proof of the, we call galley proof. And please remember that this is the last chance to make any final corrections. I know several authors, they do not care about the, once it is accepted, okay, they will say it is okay. They don't correct the galley proof. There could be lots of mistakes, printing mistakes. So I request all my colleagues, friends, read the galley proof very carefully and correct all the mistakes. I have another slide. What to do if a paper is rejected? You know what some authors do? If a paper is rejected, you know what they do? Without any modification, they send to another journal of lower impact. Never do that. If the paper is rejected, there will always some comments. You look at the comments. You look at the editorial comments, you look at the reviewer comments, and try to modify it. We have to do a very careful modification. Then you find a new journal and submit. So my request to all my colleagues is carefully read the comments. You see, I always try to send the paper to a high impact journal. It could be rejected. But the comments are very, very valuable. Based on the comments, you revise it and then you resubmit. I have another important slide. What to avoid when you write a paper? Data without scientific discussion. You avoid. If you have data without any discussion, no use. Avoid data without scientific discussion. Application data or reviews of literature are not sufficient. Routine synthesis and characterization, very difficult to publish. Use of the phrases novel, first time, you know, some of the, or they say, oh, this is the first time you report this. This may not be right. So avoid such sentences in your paper. I have mentioned here to do even better, or they should make every effort to make a good presentation with the proper use of English grammar. Now there are a lot of agencies worldwide. They will be able to support you, but you have to pay. to look at your English. But if you don't have that amount of money, because they always charge, you can ask your colleague to comment on the paper. Some of the journalists say English is not our native language. Therefore, you can get the help of an English teacher to correct your English. So all these factors have to be taken care of. Finally, I wanted to tell you 10 characteristics of incredibly dull paper, incredibly bad paper. I'm going to make 10 important points of a bad scientific paper. There is no focus, no originality to the paper. If there is no originality, it's very difficult to be published. Some papers are very lengthy, 15, 16 pages. Make the article really, really long. Very bad. It's a dull paper. Do not indicate any potential implications. Leave out illustrations. Too much effort to draw a sensible drawing. Some people do that. Good reasoning. Suppose if you omit good scientific reasoning and discussion, it's a dull paper. If you use lots of abbreviations, acronyms, I would say it's a dull paper. If there is no significant discussion, I would say it's a dull paper. Some research papers, what they do? They only look at the statistics. I would say it's a dull paper. Some, others, what do? Every statement they support with a reference. I would say it's a dull paper. So these are the 10 characteristics of an incredibly dull paper. My last slide is good luck. Do not ever give up. If a paper is rejected, don't get disappointed. That's what I always tell my students. Some students get disappointed, papers. I said, no, this is the way you learn scientific writing. So my message to all of you is, do not ever give up. It's very, very important. If you look at the scientific writing, they will say publish or perish. So we have to really publish good quality papers. And the name of an institute is always based on the number of good publications. I also wanted to give one more message to all my good friends. If you get something very interesting, something very novel, which has got industrial applicability, do not publish immediately. You go for a patent. If you invent something in the laboratory which has industrial application, please go for a patent first. Now patenting is so fast. Once you file a patent, you can publish. You can file a patent within 3 months. Then you publish. Then you can collaborate with the companies and you can commercialize. So the slogan in my laboratory is, you invent something, then you go for patenting, then you go for publishing, and then you go for commercialization process. So I thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for an enlightening and very informative presentation on the right way how to formulate a high impact publication, especially how to structure a scientific paper, selecting a journal based on its impact factor, and at last the submission of the paper. We are very grateful for the time and the effort you took to share your thoughts and experience, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now,
Thank you.
yes, sir. Now the participants can ask questions and clarify your doubts. Hello?
The slide before last. Could you please show the slide before last, sir? The slide before last.
Is it okay?
sir. Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is the characteristics of a incredibly dull paper. A paper without any focus. A paper which is extremely lengthy. A paper without any discussion. So please avoid this always.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello. Can I talk, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. You can. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. It was an enlightful session. I am a research relating to social science. Can you give some insights about the introduction? What and all should be included in introduction? And relating to statement of problem, what should be mentioned and what it should be focused? And regarding a review of literature, sir, what should it include when we want to publish in the impact journals? Regarding social science, sir, it's like commerce and management.
See, whatever be the subject, introduction should beautifully illustrate the state of the art, the dynamics of the event. You see, if I do, because I have written only scientific papers. Suppose if I publish something on synthesis of green nanoparticles, then I will develop a dynamics, where it started, what are the key findings, what are the papers. Then I slowly develop the subject. Not too much, just 1 page, 1.5 page. That should contain everything. If you read that 1.5 page, then you should have the whole story. At the end, you must say, there is gap. There are a lot of unresolved issues. This paper is going to cover all these questions. So this is the way you have to write introductions. Very, very important. It should show the whole dynamics. Whether it is science or social science. Did you get my point?
Yeah,
Don't
sir.
write
Yeah.
too much. Just 1 or maximum 2 pages. Never miss pioneering work when you write the introduction part. Very, very important. Otherwise, your paper could likely to be rejected. If you miss a pioneering work in that area, if you don't cite that paper, your paper will be rejected. The whole story should be discussed 1 page or 2 page maximum.
Hello, good
Yeah.
morning, ma'am. Good morning.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I am from social science again. I am an assistant professor in Law University. But generally, I have a doubt, sir. The thing is, how do you distinguish between an abstract and a conclusion? Because in many papers, they ask for abstract first.
Abstract, you see, you indicate the key findings. Very short. But discuss and conclude.
Okay.
What's the difference? In conclusion, you have to discuss. Conclusion could be a little bit lengthy. Maybe more than half page. Abstract should be just indicate the major findings.
So in abstract also, we must write about what are we going to conclude, sir.
No, not really. Your major finding you should include the abstract.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
It's be different.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. This is Sumanjali. I have a doubt, sir. I have 2 questions. Can you please elaborate what is galley proof?
Galley proof is, you see, when you publish something, there are lots of, you see, proofreading. Have you heard about proofreading?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is what is galley proof.
Okay.
The proof will be sent to you.
Okay, sir. My second question is, sir, when we do the citation or the reference, suppose I have taken one exact line from your paper and I am showing that this is cited, then it will definitely show me plagiarism from your paper. So can you please clarify that particular point?
You see, suppose if you cite me, then
Yes.
you can cite according to Professor Thomas et al. Inverted commas.
Okay.
That's fine.
So I should mention according to Professor Sabu Thomas.
No,
This
not
is
Professor Thomas, only the surname. According to Professor Thomas et al. Thomas and group. You write the sentence inverted commas. That you can do. There is no problem. But without quoting the name, you cannot reproduce the statement.
All right. And the third question is it very important that to have a co-author from different colleges or different institutes?
Not necessary. You see, if you look at my publications, when I was a PhD student, I have single author paper, I have two other papers. But if you want to utilize multiple techniques,
Yes.
you see, I told you a lot of my transmission electron microscopy I used to do in Beijing in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you look at my X-ray work, I used to do in Europe quite a lot of work. So then, we always have partners.
Okay.
See,
Okay.
there is
Good morning.
There is no need to have multiple
Hello.
audience. But you do. if you
Hello.
do-
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello. Sir, good morning, sir.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I am Prakash from Vardhaman College of Engineering and research scholar from JNTU Kakinada, sir.
Oh, very good.
Sir, here generally some of the journals that are listed in ABDC journals, but that doesn't have, some few journals doesn't have impact factor. So the universities are asking for the impact factor. So can you suggest, can we publish in that journals or what we need to do, sir?
I request all my colleagues to publish in, one is UGC cited journal. UGC has cited journals. Cite them. It's very important. Publish them. It's very important because for your promotion, everything, UGC has a list. One thing you can do that because if you're working in a university, definitely they will look at whether your journals are listed in UGC. If it is not listed, if a good journal is not listed, you can write in UGC. Second aspect is you always look at the list of journals. And it always takes some time to get in that structure. Maybe 3 years. So try to publish in a journal which is in that structure or at least site score. Okay?
Yes.
Please in
Thank
the
you.
infrastructure or
Sir?
site score.
Hello,
Thank you.
sir. Sir, good morning, sir. Do you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Sir, this is Vijay Rani from Bhadyar University, sir. I belong to Computer Science Department.
Yes.
Sir, is there any limitation about number of pages, sir? Suppose if I am submitting paper in the SCI journal, indexed journal, is there any limitation in number of pages, sir?
You see, all the journals worldwide now have page limitation. Please don't submit lengthy paper.
Okay,
If it is
sir.
a review, it is fine. If it is a review, it is fine. Because reviews are 60, 70 pages or 50 pages, 50 pages. But if it is a publication, I would say, including everything, references, it could be something like 10 to 15 pages, 5 pages.
Okay.
More than that.
Hello. Good morning, sir.
Sir, one more
Good morning,
question, sir. Sir, you have told about that TOC, no, sir, table of contents.
Yes. TOC,
Sir, in our computer science papers, we have given a methodology or proposed architecture in the introduction section. So that one only you have meant, sir?
No. You see, TOC diagram, you should catch the whole content of the paper. In chemistry, in physics, in biological sciences, we always give a cartoon.
Okay,
It
sir.
indicates the major focus of the paper.
Okay, sir.
In computer science also you can give
Okay.
that sort of cartoon.
Oh.
That will give you some insights into the major
morning.
findings.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
Professor Helen Rajeshwari.
Yes.
Professor Helen Rajeshwari from Lala College, Chennai. So my question is, do we have to select the journal based on the impact factor or the journal which is mentioned there, sir?
You see, if you are working in the university, university grants all the high impact journals.
Yes.
I would say you look at the UGC list. Please look at both.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, sir. Sir,
Hello.
myself is Vinita.
Yes.
I have a query that when people write scientific papers, they do focus too much on techniques and using the data rather than in interpretation and analysis. And most
You know
of the
what
time,
I would say interpretation of data is the most important thing.
yes.
Analyze the data, discuss the data, and present new findings. Even if you do not have good techniques for experimenting, with your available data, you interpret beautifully. You bring in new ideas and new concepts you can publish.
But at that time,
No issue.
the conclusion and recommendation that doesn't take you much forward. So what's your idea to the people who write it? That how do they write it? That their analysis is very strong. Their data is very good. The techniques are very good.
Hello, ma'am.
Sir.
But when it comes to discussion, they don't focus that much.
Yeah, focus and discuss very well. And has been found so far, and you say your findings are something new. You give a new interpretation, and you compare your data with model. Okay, that's very important. Every experimental paper should have a sort of 1 page or 2 page comparison with theory. I do that. In all my publications, I compare with theoretical predictions. That will give additional value. If you have a colleague who is good in theory modeling and simulation, do some theory modeling simulation to solve the paper.
Sir.
Okay, sir.
Hello.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello. Hello.
Sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Dr. Haldar, DY Patil, Pune. Regarding question regarding patent of the paper, that should be done before, during, or after the publishing.
No. You see, once you have some interesting data, you don't publish immediately. You apply for a patent.
Okay. Publishing also.
The patent is filed, you go for publication. Otherwise, you lose everything.
That may be individual.
Could be. If your data is interesting, some technological importance, if industrial applicability, you go for patent. Don't go for patent for every data. No. Interesting, important, novel, should be patent.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Did you get my point?
Yes, I got
never patent all my data. I just patent.
Excuse me, sir. Can you?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yes.
Excuse me, sir. Can you briefly update on the H index? Hello, sir. H index. Can you briefly update on H index?
Oh, very interesting question, which I should have discussed today. You see, right now.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
H index. Briefly, can you tell about H
index? Right now, my H index is 103. So what it indicates? H index 103 means 103 papers of mine has been cited at least or more than 103 times. If your H index is 5, that means 5 papers of yours has been cited at 5 times. If your H index is 10, 10 papers of yours have been cited at least 10 times. So H index, in summary, H index is a measure of quality and quantity of publication. If you look at young people, young researchers, their H index is small, maybe 10, 15. I've been in the field for the last 33 years. I'm an aggressive publisher. See, I published more than 1,000 papers now, and I have lots of citations because we work in different areas. So H-index reflects the quality and quantity of publication. A senior professor having H-index 10 means he doesn't publish many papers. So looking at the H-index, you get two information. One is the quality, the citation. Second is the quantity. Look at the H-index of Nobel laureates. You see almost 200, 150. You know, they publish quite a lot and high quality. There are lots of publications. Did you get my point? Thank you.
So good morning,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Hello, good morning, sir. Hello, sir. Sabu, sir.
Yes.
Sir, this is Ajay Krishnan from MacFast. Sir, I am having a doubt like UGC listed, as you told, sir, UGC listed journal. In the UGC listed journal, for suppose, sir, if I publish in a UGC listed journal, and for the next revision, if that journal is not there in the UGC list, then it will be considered as a, in the academics appointment and all, it will be considered as a UGC listed journal?
So my request to all my colleagues, try to publish in high-ranking journals. You see, I am also in UGC committee. UGC remove all this journal because they are state-free. They collect money and publish, so they have been removed. So please look at the impact factor. You publish in high impact factor journal, like Royal Society of Chemistry or ACS or Physical Society journals, YD journals, good journals.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, good morning, sir. This side, Dr. Rizwan from Jaipur.
Yes, Islam. Dr. Islam.
Sir, I just want to ask a question. Sir, there is the institution required that the publication must be from the Scopus. And if you go to the Scopus list, scopus.com, the journals are showing that we published a paper, and sometime after that, the clone journals are there in the market, and they come into in that place. And then our publication get invalid for that. So how to save, how to do that in that direction to be safe and be published in the authentic journal? Even
I didn't understand. You said your publication become, what happened to your publication? If you publish in a good journal, there is no problem. I never faced any problem so far.
Fine. But that journal, after that, when you find that this journal it is a clone journal after some time.
No. See, you have to look at the reputation of the journal.
Yeah.
All my colleagues, there are lots of journals, they publish for money.
Okay.
You have to beware of that.
Mm.
They will send you lots of nice letters, you publish, or impact factor is 10, 15, they're all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the Web of Science, the impact factor.
Mm-hmm.
Select good journal. So I request all my good friends to be very, very careful. People do lots of business now, making money. So never publish in predatory journals. They will come out with a nice website and everything, and after a while they will disappear. If they are not profitable, they will disappear. So please look at the reputation of a journal. Okay, that is my advice to all of you.
Fine, sir. Fine. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Dr. Sabu, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Dr. Sabu, sir. I am Dr. P.D. Kumbar from Sangli district, Maharashtra.
Yes.
I want to, first of all, I thank for your very nice session and very informative this thing about the paper formulation. I would like to ask one question which is related to how we can write the review papers. If you could briefly give some guidelines for writing review papers.
That's a very interesting question. You see, I always ask my PhD students, because they always do 6 months of library work, review work, and I always ask them to write a good review. You see, once you write good review paper, you get good citation. If you look at polymer science, the best review paper is Progress in Polymer Science. Impact is very close to 30. And I always ask my PhD students, you try to publish. Some of them publish, not all. So a good review paper has good value. You get good citation. A review paper should have, if you are writing a review paper, The review paper should have a large number of references. You should review the references very systematically. Suppose you are publishing a review paper in 2020.
Yes.
That review paper should have 80% or 70% or 80% of the publication should be last 5 years.
Okay.
Okay, and rest, of course, you should begin from the very beginning, but you should have maximum number of around 70% should be research.
Okay.
Because I had experience from Progress in Polymer Science. Some papers, when I sent to Progress in Polymer Science, they refused. They said, no, Professor Thomas, you did not review, you did not cite the papers for the last 5 years. On the other hand, you cited so many papers of last 10 years, 15 years. So this is my message. Read the literature very carefully for the last 5 years.
Okay.
Of course, you should go 20, 30% you can show for the last 40 years or 50 years. And systematically, you have to organize the review. And
Yes.
you have, when you write a review, you must also give good interpretation.
Yes.
Your own comments. You say that these areas are not explored. You should say that these findings are quite doubtful.
Yes, sir.
These areas need more investigation. There are conflicting reports. These you have to bring in. Don't say that, okay, et al, reporter. That is not a good review. You have to apply your intellectual capability, analyze the data very carefully, and make your own observations.
Yes.
That will make a very good review. You get my point?
Yes, sir. What would be the sequence for writing this particular thing? That also I
a good review should have a good abstract.
Yes.
Historically, you present your development of the subject very historically. You have to have a good introduction.
Yes, sir.
Then you sequence it beautifully. What are the techniques of analysis people have used? Their deficiencies. What are the new techniques required for the characterization? What are the deficiency introduction? In the results and discussion. So you have to have a very critical mind when you write a review.
Yes.
If you don't have a critical mind, you cannot publish a very good review in a high-class journal.
Yes.
How many papers we have to review, sir, scientifically?
Pardon?
For writing an article, how many papers review we have
I
to?
say all the available paper in that area, in your domain. All the available important publications.
Okay.
Again, I would say high-ranking publications. Okay. Suppose if I'm writing a review on nanoparticle synthesis, green root, you must read all the new high-impact papers in that area.
Okay, okay, sir.
See, for example, green chemistry of Royal Society of Chemistry, very high-ranking.
Okay, sir.
Synthesis will paper is something very, very new, novel. It will come in green chemistry.
Okay, sir.
So please read all the high-impact journals in that area.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your for addressing my queries. Thank you very much, sir. And I must thank organizers for organizing such a beautiful session on this
Thank you, sir.
topic.
Thank you. So, dear participants, due to the time constraint, we are forced to close the questionnaire session. We have, if you have further queries, please drop an email. Okay, so next, I would like to invite Dr. K. Matthews, faculty at IIT Kottayam, for vote of thanks. Sir, please.
Good morning, all of you. It is my pleasure and privilege to propose the vote of thanks. Dr. Sabu Thomas, sir, Vice Chancellor of MG University, carved out some time for us during his hectic schedule, especially during this pandemic period. It was a very interesting and informative session. Actually, we are privileged to have a speaker with an international profile. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of IIT Kottayam, I would like to convey my profuse thanks to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and you replied to my emails even during late night or 11:30 because I am really pleasantly surprised and shocked. And we got overwhelming participation for the program. Thank you all the participants. We got participants all over India as well as abroad. Next, I would like to thank our director, sir, registrar, sir, and the IT support team for the smooth conduct of the event. And I would also thank Dr. Panjami Miss for coordinating the program. Thank you all. Thank you all the participants. And my special thanks on behalf of IIIT Kottayam to Dr. Sabu Thomas, sir, during this hectic schedule. He found out some time for us. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for.
Is there any feedback form?
Ma'am, hello.
Is there any feedback form to be filled or something like that?
As we will send through mail, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Ma'am, will you give any certificate?
Hello, Panjami ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. Is there any certificates?
Hello, ma'am. Do you give us any certificate? Please clarify your doubt, ma'am. Could you? Hello.